After the divorce, pregnant wife married a millionaire, but what happened next shocked her ex. In a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Boston, Lillian Alvarez believed her marriage was unshakable until it wasn't. Left with a newborn daughter and a shattered heart, she discovered that vows could be broken as swiftly as they were made. Clutching her baby close, she braced herself for a life without the man she'd once adored. Then, like an unexpected dawn, a charismatic millionaire named Christopher Freriedman stepped into her world. Their whirlwind romance and sudden marriage made headlines, but what happened next would stun Lillian's ex-husband and rock the foundations of everything he thought he knew, because sometimes second chances come wrapped in secrets no one sees coming. Lillian Alvarez never imagined divorce papers would mar the coffee table in the living room she had painstakingly decorated. The pastel-colored walls, once echoing with laughter, now exuded a hollow chill. Her husband, ex-husband, she corrected herself bitterly, Ethan Marshall, packed the last of his belongings in cardboard boxes. He had insisted their split was mutual, but in truth, Lillian felt blindsided. They had been together since college, forging a bond that weathered late-night study sessions and cheap diners. For a while, it seemed love alone could conquer any struggle. But as the years passed, financial stress chipped away at Ethan's patience. His corporate ambitions overshadowed their once simple joys. When Lillian announced her pregnancy, she hoped it might spark renewed closeness. Instead, Ethan's frustration escalated. He claimed they weren't ready for parenthood. The ensuing arguments turned venomous. Now, with 6-month-old Ava cradled in her arms, Lillian watched Ethan's tense shoulders as he carried out the final box. He paused at the door, eyes flicking from Lillian to the baby. An emotion flitted across his face. Regret, sorrow, or guilt. She couldn't tell, but the moment was fleeting. He mumbled a goodbye and vanished into the drizzling rain. The metallic clang of his car trunk snapping shut echoed through the dreary afternoon. Lillian sank to the couch, tears slipping down her cheeks. She felt a crushing weariness, her life in tatters at 28. If not for Ava, she might have crumbled. But her daughter's gentle coo reminded her that she couldn't afford despair. She had a tiny soul relying on her. In the silence that followed, Lillian let her gaze wander over wedding photos perched on a side table. Their smiling faces beamed from better days. Shutting her eyes, she inhaled a shaky breath. She had to find a way forward, relying on her old administrative job at a local non-profit, scraping by in a home that now felt too big. Her parents were supportive, but they lived in Florida and had health issues of their own. Lillian refused to burden them further. "Goodbye, Ethan," she whispered softly, pressing a tender kiss to Ava's forehead. The baby clutched at her hair, babbling. In that sweet, innocent sound, Lillian found the faintest trace of hope. If she had learned anything from this heartbreak, it was that love could fail, but motherly devotion would not. In the weeks ahead, Lillian would wrestle with questions of identity and purpose, forging a new path while shielding her daughter from the wreckage. She had no idea that fate was about to introduce her to someone whose presence would upend everything she believed about second chances, and just how deeply that new connection would shock Ethan, the man who once swore to love her forever. Months trickled by, each day a testament to Lillian's resilience. She juggled motherhood, finances, and a smoldering sense of betrayal. Her job at the local non-profit, Bright Futures, helped keep the lights on. She cherished her role assisting underprivileged families find housing and job training. Though it wasn't glamorous, the work felt purposeful, a reflection of her caring spirit. Early one November morning, Lillian arrived at the Bright Futures office, balancing a diaper bag, half-finished coffee, and a stack of client files. The crisp autumn air bit at her cheeks, but she welcomed the bracing start. Once inside, she dropped Ava off at the small daycare corner run by volunteer retirees and hurried to her desk. Just as she settled, her supervisor, Paula Johnson, called her into a meeting. Expecting routine updates, Lillian was startled to see a tall, impeccably dressed man seated at the conference table. His presence radiated a quiet confidence, from the crisp lines of his tailored suit to the polite smile he flashed upon introduction. "This is Christopher Freriedman," Paula said, gesturing warmly. "He's here to discuss a potential partnership with Freriedman Associates. They're interested in funding some of our programs." Lillian's eyebrows rose in recognition. She had heard the Freriedman name whispered in philanthropic circles. Apparently, Christopher Freriedman was known for strategic investments and well-chosen charities. She offered a courteous handshake, trying to ignore how his gaze lingered on her a moment longer than expected. Christopher explained he was exploring non-profits that tackled housing insecurity. He asked pointed questions about bright futures, success rates, community engagement, future goals. Lillian, unexpectedly asked to speak, outlined the challenges families faced: unemployment, mental health, childcare. She described real-life stories, her voice tinged with heartfelt emotion. Christopher listened intently, occasionally scribbling notes. Something about his respectful attention and thoughtful queries calmed her nerves. She glimpsed none of the arrogant swagger she associated with wealthy philanthropists. At meeting's end, Christopher thanked them both and promised to send his team for a deeper assessment. He nodded at Lillian. "Your dedication is commendable. I sense your passion. It's rare." She blushed at the compliment, hurriedly excusing herself to retrieve Ava for a midday break. Yet as she walked, her mind kept drifting back to the intriguing aura Christopher Freriedman exuded. There was sincerity in his tone she hadn't expected from a millionaire. That evening, Lillian returned to her modest house, feeding Ava mashed peas and tidying up scattered toys. She couldn't shake the memory of Christopher's steady gaze or the flutter in her chest when he spoke directly to her. Pushing the notion aside as ridiculous, she resolved to refocus on immediate concerns: bills, groceries, her daughter's well-being. Little did she realize that this unlikely intersection with a powerful philanthropist was merely the first ripple in a tide that would soon carry her into a whirlwind of change, and echo all the way to her ex-husband's door. Over the next few weeks, Freriedman Associates quietly audited Bright Futures programs, evaluating metrics and success rates. Staff members were on edge, hoping this influential firm would become a steady funding source. Lillian found herself juggling client appointments and performing mini-tours for Freriedman's analysts. Through it all, she rarely saw Christopher Freriedman, though she heard updates from Paula about his interest in certain expansions. But one late afternoon, as she was about to clock out, he appeared at her desk unexpectedly. "I'm glad I caught you," he said, holding a sleek folder. "I've reviewed the final reports. I'd like to discuss them over coffee, get a more personal perspective from you if you have time." Normally Lillian would hesitate, especially after typical business hours, but she recalled Paula's emphasis on Freriedman Associates' crucial support. She also couldn't deny a flicker of curiosity. "Sure," she agreed, checking the time. Ava was in daycare until 6, so she had a small window. "There's a cafe nearby." They ended up at a cozy spot lit by warm Edison bulbs. The rush-hour crowd bustled around them, but Lillian felt oddly at ease. Christopher pulled out a notebook, peppering her with questions about Bright Futures' day-to-day challenges, the emotional toll on staff, and her personal experiences. She recounted heartbreaking stories of single parents sleeping in cars, children caught in cycles of poverty. He listened with empathy, taking detailed notes. When they ran out of official topics, Lillian braced to leave, but Christopher hesitated. "I'm grateful for your insights. Sometimes these philanthropic decisions can feel like numbers on paper. You remind me there are real lives behind every statistic." She offered a half smile. "That's why I work here. People aren't data points. They're human beings with stories." An unspoken warmth lingered in the air. Christopher's gaze flicked to a faint ring mark on her left hand, evidence of a band that once existed. He said gently, "I sense you have your own story, Lillian." She swallowed, remembering the heartbreak that preceded her new normal. "We all do. she said quietly, not elaborating. She glanced at the clock. I should pick up my daughter. The word daughter seemed to spark something in him, a flicker of curiosity, but he only nodded politely. Of course. Thank you again. As she rose, he stood, offering a soft, "Take care." That night, Lillian tried to focus on bedtime routines for Ava, baths, lullabies, warm milk, but her thoughts kept drifting to Christopher's quiet sincerity. She reminded herself that he was just a wealthy donor, nothing more. Yet she couldn't deny the strange sense of ease in his presence. Telling herself it was purely professional interest, she closed her eyes, nestling Ava's tiny body against her. If only she knew that an invitation lay ahead, one that would draw her closer into Christopher's orbit, testing her heart's readiness to trust again, and setting the stage for a chain of events that would leave Ethan stunned by the path his ex-wife would soon tread. December brought a whirlwind of holiday events, including the prestigious Benchmark Gala, an annual fundraiser that Freriedman Associates co-sponsored with other corporate heavyweights. The rumor around Bright Futures was that Christopher Freriedman planned to formally announce the firm's partnership with them at the event. For Lillian, the invitation to attend was both thrilling and nerve-wracking, a formal black-tie affair at the opulent Milford Hotel, teeming with Manhattan's elite. Paula encouraged Lillian to go, insisting her perspective would demonstrate the real impact of Freriedman Associates' donation. However, Lillian's budget didn't stretch to an expensive gown or hairstylist. She worried about standing out awkwardly among socialites, but Paula assured her that the organization would cover her expenses, seeing it as a promotional necessity. Reluctantly, Lillian accepted, not wanting to jeopardize the crucial funding for Bright Futures. The night of the gala, she found herself in a borrowed formal dress, black satin with modest beading, paired with simple heels. Her hair was swept into a neat bun by a friend skilled in hairstyling. Clutching the invitation in trembling hands, Lillian arrived at the Milford Hotel's grand ballroom. Soft orchestral music drifted across the marbled floors, and crystal chandeliers bathed guests in a warm glow. She scanned the crowd with uncertainty, searching for a familiar face. Spotting Paula near a lavish ice sculpture, she breathed relief and joined her. After brief introductions to various donors, Lillian sipped ginger ale, her gaze flitting nervously around. Then she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Christopher Freriedman stood behind her, looking every bit the polished host in a tailored tux. His eyes lit up with genuine warmth. "I'm glad you made it," he said, offering an encouraging smile. "You look—" He paused, as if searching for the right word. "Elegant." Heat rose in her cheeks. "Thank you. I'm not used to this kind of event," she admitted, gesturing to the swirl of designer gowns and diamond jewelry. She spotted celebrities, politicians, and business tycoons, all mingling with effortless confidence. Christopher guided her through the throng, introducing her to key figures. He asked her to share heartfelt stories of the family's bright futures served. Surprisingly, the more Lillian spoke, the more comfortable she felt. People listened attentively, moved by her authenticity. She realized Christopher had placed her in a position to shine, ensuring that the cause overshadowed any superficial chatter. After a round of toasts, Christopher gently tugged her aside to a quieter corner. "They've pledged double the amount we estimated," he revealed. "Your passion convinced them. This will transform your programs, Lillian." Emotion welled in her eyes. She glanced around at the glamorous setting, hardly believing that funds raised here would help struggling families. "Thank you," she whispered, her gratitude aimed not only at the donors, but at Christopher for championing their work. In that soft-lit corner, his gaze lingered on her face, an unspoken something passing between them. Then the band struck up a waltz, and couples drifted onto the dance floor. Christopher hesitated. "Would you like to dance, or do you need to get home to your daughter?" She bit her lip. For once, she wanted to savor a moment of normalcy. "Just one dance," she said softly. He took her hand, leading her onto the marble floor. As the music swelled, Lillian felt a glimmer of contentment. Unbeknownst to her, this graceful waltz would set in motion a deeper connection, one that promised to reshape her life and eventually send shockwaves all the way back to Ethan Marshall. The weeks following the gala brought a surprising shift in Lillian's daily routine. Christopher Freriedman began visiting Bright Futures more frequently under the guise of monitoring the partnership's progress. But Lillian sensed a personal dimension in his visits. He'd bring coffee, linger at her desk, and pose thoughtful questions about her experiences as a single mother. A quiet bond blossomed, nurtured by shared lunches and short strolls to a nearby park during breaks. At first, Lillian kept her guard up. She had seen how illusions of care could mask deeper betrayals, like in her marriage to Ethan. But the more time she spent with Christopher, the more sincerity she perceived. He never pried into her personal life, though she could tell he was curious. She felt comfortable enough to mention Ava in casual conversation. He listened intently whenever she spoke of her daughter's baby babbles or bedtime routines. One Saturday morning, Christopher texted Lillian, asking if she might help him coordinate a small charity drive in the suburbs. The daycare center for working mothers could use some fresh supplies, and Freriedman Associates wanted to sponsor a supply drop-off. Hesitant about devoting her weekend, Lillian eventually agreed. She reasoned it was for a good cause, and the charitable impetus aligned with her job. She packed Ava's diaper bag, planning to drop the baby at a neighbor's house, but Christopher insisted Ava could come along. "I'd love to meet her," he said simply. Thus, Lillian found herself at a suburban community hall, organizing boxes of diapers, formula, and baby clothes. Ava tottered around, her bright eyes taking in the new surroundings. Christopher arrived with a few Freriedman Associates staff, directing them to set up a donation table. Once the supplies were neatly arranged, he turned his attention to Ava. The toddler, all curly hair and wide-eyed wonder, gazed up at the tall stranger. To Lillian's astonishment, Christopher knelt to Ava's level, gently offering a plush toy. Ava reached out, giggling. Over the next hour, Christopher found ways to engage her, letting her help carry small stuffed animals or making silly faces to coax adorable laughter. Lillian watched in silent fascination. She'd never witnessed such patient warmth from a man around her baby. Even Ethan, back when he lived with them, seemed distant toward paternal duties. After the supply distribution, staff departed, leaving just Lillian, Christopher, and Ava. Tired from the excitement, Ava dozed off in Lillian's arms. Christopher offered them a ride home in his sleek black SUV, which Lillian accepted cautiously. During the drive, she risked a glance at him, noticing how his expression softened whenever he peeked at Ava through the rearview mirror. Something in her chest stirred, an unfamiliar mix of gratitude and longing. Later that night, as Lillian rocked Ava to sleep in their modest living room, she reflected on Christopher Freriedman's nurturing demeanor. She couldn't help but imagine a future in which a father figure offered more than scorn or neglect. A pang of guilt flashed. She still wrestled with the remnants of her love-hate relationship with Ethan. But as Ava snuggled closer, Lillian realized her daughter had instinctively approved of Christopher's gentle presence. And that small fact chipped away at the wall she'd built around her heart. Amid the blossoming friendship with Christopher Freriedman, Lillian's life was abruptly rattled by a phone call one dreary afternoon. The caller ID flashed Ethan Marshall. Her throat clenched. She hesitated before answering, dreading a potential confrontation. But curiosity, tempered by lingering pain, spurred her to pick up. Ethan's voice had an edge of urgency. "Lillian, I need to see you. It's important." She suppressed a surge of irritation. "What for, Ethan?" "We've been divorced for months," he sighed heavily. "I realize that. But can I come over? Or maybe we meet somewhere neutral. Please, there's something I've got to tell you." Against her better judgment, Lillian agreed to a public meeting at a local cafe. After finishing her shift, she left Ava with a neighbor. Her heart pounded as she arrived, memories of heartbreak flooding back. She spotted Ethan by the window, tapping his fingers on the table. He looked older, Lines of stress creased his brow, and his once meticulous suit seemed wrinkled. "Thanks for meeting," he said, rising awkwardly. She offered a polite nod, taking a seat across from him. Silence hung thick for a moment before Ethan spoke in a rush. "I messed up, Lillian. Life post-divorce hasn't been good. My job at the investment firm ended, and finances are a wreck. My new relationship collapsed too." He cast her a pleading look, as if hoping for pity. Lillian's jaw tightened. He had left her struggling with a newborn while he chased success. Now he dared to unload his woes on her? She inhaled deeply, remembering her vow to keep calm. "I'm sorry things didn't work out," she said coolly, "but what does that have to do with me?" He fidgeted, swirling the coffee cup. "I miss Ava. I want to see her. Maybe be part of her life again." The words, though halting, struck her like a bolt. He had never previously displayed genuine interest in fatherhood. She saw the tension in his posture, a man cornered by regrets. Part of Lillian wanted to lash out. "Where were you when I needed help, when I was alone, raising her on a meager salary?" But she restrained herself, letting the hurt simmer. "It's complicated, Ethan. She's just over a year old now, doesn't know you. You can't walk in and out as you please." He rubbed his temples. "I know, I messed up. But can you blame me for trying to fix things?" His sincerity was questionable, yet Lillian glimpsed some flicker of regret. "I'll think about it," she said, voice shaky. "But don't get your hopes up. I won't let you hurt Ava." The meeting ended awkwardly, with Ethan's posture slumped in the drizzling rain outside. Lillian watched him go, confusion and anger battling in her chest. She returned home, mind swirling. On one hand, it felt vindicating to see Ethan face consequences. On the other hand, she worried about the heartbreak he might bring into Ava's life if he proved unreliable again. That evening, Christopher texted, "Everything all right? You seemed stressed at work." Lillian stared at his message, torn between relief at his concern and the chaos Ethan's return unleashed. She typed a brief, "I'm fine, thanks for asking." But inwardly, she braced herself. Fate, it seemed, had thrown Ethan back into her life just as a new door was opening. And soon, the collision of these worlds would set off a chain of events no one could predict. Snow coated the city streets in a sparkling hush, marking the official start of winter. Bright Futures wrapped up another successful quarter, buoyed by Freriedman Associates' generous funding. Lillian found herself increasingly in Christopher's sphere. He often dropped by to brainstorm new outreach strategies or invite her to philanthropic dinners. Their bond grew steadily, fueled by shared passions and mutual respect. On a crisp December evening, Christopher asked Lillian to join him for a charity event celebrating the opening of a transitional housing complex. She felt a twinge of guilt leaving Ava with her neighbor again, but the cause was dear to her heart. She arrived wearing a simple navy dress, glad for the coat that shielded her from the biting cold. Christopher, in a charcoal suit, greeted her at the entrance, warmth radiating from his every gesture. The event unfolded in a modest church hall, its walls decorated with photos of families who would benefit from the new housing. Lillian spoke with unwavering conviction, explaining how stable housing could break generational cycles of poverty. Christopher, smiling at her side, introduced her to donors, praising her dedication. At the end of the evening they headed outside, the snowfall turning the city lights into a glittering mosaic. Christopher offered to walk her back to her car. Under a flickering street lamp, he halted, tucking his hands into his coat pockets with an air of nervousness she'd never seen before. "I've been pondering something for a while," he began softly. "Lillian, you and Ava have brought light into my life. I'd assumed wealth was enough, but you taught me the power of human connection. My philanthropic ambitions feel more meaningful now." He inhaled, exhaling a visible puff in the freezing air. What if we tried to be more than friends? Lillian's breath caught. They had teetered on this possibility, glances, near confessions. Yet hearing the words out loud shook her. After the trauma of her marriage's collapse, was she ready for something new, and with a man so different from Ethan? Christopher pressed on gently. I know your trust was broken before. I'd never rush you. But you should know. I love you, Lillian, and I want to be part of your life, part of Ava's life, if you'll let me. Tears stung her eyes, warring with the fear that had haunted her. She remembered Ethan's charm at first, then the heartbreak that followed, but Christopher Freriedman was not Ethan. He'd shown consistent kindness, respect for her autonomy, genuine affection for Ava. Still, it was almost too overwhelming to respond. Her voice trembled. I care about you too, but I have to protect my daughter. He nodded, relief and tenderness blending in his features. We'll go at your pace, but I wanted you to know how I feel. She leaned into his warmth, heart pounding. Snowflakes landed on her eyelashes, mirroring the trembling tears she fought back. She couldn't promise immediate acceptance of a relationship, but she felt a door in her heart crack open. In that silent, snowy street, Christopher Freriedman's confession hung in the air, a hopeful vow that, if nurtured carefully, could change her life forever. As the holiday season reached its peak, Lillian struggled with a swirl of emotions. Christopher's declaration echoed in her mind. She found solace in sharing her conflicted feelings with Carmen, who cheered her on, exclaiming that not everyone gets a second chance at happiness, especially with a man of genuine character. Meanwhile, Ethan's call to see Ava weighed heavily, overshadowing her budding romance. She fretted over exposing her daughter to a father who might disappoint them again. New Year's Eve arrived, bringing a glimmer of excitement. Christopher invited Lillian and Ava to celebrate at a cozy cabin he'd rented in the Adirondacks, along with a few close friends. Initially, she hesitated. Traveling with a toddler to meet new people felt daunting, but his gentle assurance and the thought of a real holiday escape convinced her to say yes. The cabin stood amidst a snowy forest, its warm lights casting a golden glow on the frosted trees. Inside, crackling logs in the fireplace exuded a welcoming heat. Christopher's friends were a mix of philanthropic colleagues and childhood companions. They greeted Lillian kindly, fussing over adorable Ava. The baby squealed with delight at the novelty of the fireplace and the glimpses of snow through wide windows. Over a buffet of homemade stews, fresh bread and holiday pastries, laughter filled the cabin. Despite the presence of near strangers, Lillian felt strangely at ease. Christopher ensured she never felt left out, keeping an arm around her whenever conversation turned technical or referencing her vital role at Bright Futures. Late into the evening, while Ava dozed in a makeshift crib, the adults drank champagne, reminiscing about past years and listing hopes for the future. As midnight neared, they gathered outside to watch a private fireworks display Christopher had arranged. Lillian wrapped a thick blanket around herself, arms cradling the now sleepy Ava. The sky erupted in brilliant colors, reflecting on the shimmering snowbanks. Soft oohs and ahs accompanied each burst of light. Christopher slipped beside her. The swirling fireworks illuminated his face with fleeting bursts of pink, green, and gold. He gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek. "Thank you for coming. I know this might feel like a leap," she smiled, leaning into him. "A leap, yes, but it feels right." At the stroke of midnight, the group cheered, hugging each other. Christopher carefully took Ava from Lillian's arms, pressing a kiss to the baby's forehead. Then he looked at Lillian, emotion brimming. Under the fireworks blaze, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her lips. Time seemed to slow, the kiss tender and full of unspoken promises. In that moment, Lillian realized she was forging a new future, one that might be drastically different from her past. She felt a rush of gratitude and an inkling of the complexities that lay ahead. Because love stories aren't solely about confetti and bright lights, they're also about the unexpected entanglements that can reappear at the most inopportune times. Soon enough, Ethan would play his hand, and the world Lillian was carefully building could be thrown into disarray. January ushered in new routines for Lillian. She moved in measured steps toward a deeper relationship with Christopher. They continued to see each other outside of work, sharing dinners at her home where he'd help feed Ava, earning the toddler's giggles with silly spoon games. Lillian was touched by how quickly and earnestly he adapted to the day-to-day tasks of caring for a small child. Ethan, meanwhile, remained a sporadic presence. He texted occasionally, asking if Lillian had considered letting him visit Ava. She remained hesitant, demanding proof of stable employment and perhaps therapy if he truly wanted to rectify his absence. To her surprise, Ethan responded that he'd found a new job in a smaller firm and was meeting with a counselor to address his emotional shortcomings. It was a small step, but not enough to earn her trust yet. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, Christopher invited Lillian to Freriedman Associates' annual staff celebration. It was a large gathering held at a countryside estate with employees, executives, and their families. Lillian debated whether to bring Ava, but Christopher insisted that it was family-friendly and Ava would be welcomed. She agreed, albeit with nervous excitement. The estate grounds sprawled with gardens and a heated pavilion for children's activities. Staff members mingled in a lavish hall, sipping mulled cider and enjoying live music. Ava, bundled in a warm coat, toddled after a small group of other children, her wide eyes brimming with curiosity. Lillian stuck close, introducing herself to Freriedman Associates employees who recognized her from philanthropic photos with Christopher. She half expected them to judge her as a gold digger, but surprisingly, many seemed genuinely kind, remarking on Christopher's improved morale since meeting her. During a lull, Christopher guided Lillian onto a terrace overlooking a frozen lake. The hush of winter enveloped them, broken only by the distant laughter of children. He turned to her, wearing a solemn expression. "Lillian, I want you to know I've been thinking about the future. Ours." Her heart thumped. "We've only just begun," she said softly. "I'm still adjusting." He clasped her hand. "I understand, but there's something else you should know. My mother, Celia Freriedman, is returning from Europe next week. She's traditional about our family's status. I suspect she'll be wary of me dating a single mother." A flicker of tension crossed his features. "I want you to be prepared. I'll stand by you, of course, but—" Lillian swallowed, recalling the sting of being labelled "not enough" by Ethan's more affluent circle. She offered a steady nod. "I'm not ashamed of my life or my baby. If she judges me, that's her choice. I won't let it sway how I feel about you." Relief softened Christopher's expression, and he pulled her closer. She leaned her head against his shoulder, inhaling the scent of pine from the estate's evergreens. Yet an undercurrent of apprehension pulsed. She sensed a new confrontation looming. Because whenever society and status intrude on love, turmoil often follows. And across town, Ethan too was preparing his next steps, determined not to be forgotten in the life Lillian was constructing. Lillian's first meeting with Celia Freriedman took place at a discreet brunch in one of Manhattan's elegant townhouses. Christopher arranged the meeting in hopes of setting a cordial tone. Lillian's stomach churned with nerves. She dressed conservatively, settling Ava in a sweet pastel outfit. Upon arrival, the doorman guided them to a tastefully furnished sitting room where Celia Freriedman awaited. A tall woman in her early 60s, Celia exuded a timeless poise. She rose from a velvet armchair, greeting Christopher with a reserved embrace. Then her gaze fell upon Lillian and the child in her arms. An almost imperceptible flicker of surprise crossed Celia's features. She forced a polite smile. "Miss Alvarez, is it? Pleasure to meet you." Polite but cool, Lillian dipped her head in greeting. "Thank you, Mrs. Freriedman. This is my daughter, Ava." Celia's eyes swept over the baby. "Oh, hello there, little one." She extended a finger, which Ava eyed curiously. Christopher, sensing the tension, guided them to the dining table decked with fine china. Servers moved soundlessly, pouring tea into porcelain cups. As they settled, Celia began making small talk. asking about Lillian's job at Bright Futures, her background. Lillian responded earnestly, but felt the undercurrent of scrutiny. Celia Freriedman was not outwardly hostile, yet something in her direct gaze suggested she weighed every word, silently evaluating whether Lillian fit into the Freriedman legacy. Christopher tried to steer the conversation toward philanthropic interests, praising Lillian's role in shaping new outreach programs. Celia nodded graciously, but remained aloof. Midway through the meal, she set down her teacup. "Christopher has mentioned a serious attachment here," she said delicately. "I'm curious about your plans for the future, Mrs. Alvarez." Heat rushed to Lillian's cheeks. She knew this question was about more than just tomorrow. It was about status, finances, a certain Freriedman brand of tradition. She swallowed. "I'm devoted to raising my daughter and continuing my work. Christopher and I have grown close, but we're navigating step by step. We want to ensure stability for Ava." Celia's gaze flicked to her son. "And what of the child's father? Are there entanglements we should know about?" Christopher tensed. Before Lillian could respond, he said firmly, "That's not an issue for you to worry about, Mother. Lillian has full custody." Celia's lips pressed thin, but she softened her tone. "I don't intend to pry, but I've seen how messy family matters can become. We Freriedmans must protect our own. Christopher's future is tied to certain responsibilities." Lillian stiffened. The implication was clear. She and Ava might represent a liability. Summoning composure, she managed a small smile. "I appreciate your concern. Christopher and I are handling things. My only interest is ensuring Ava's happiness." The brunch ended with an uneasy civility. As Christopher escorted Lillian out, he apologized. "I know my mother can be intense, but trust me, I won't let her deter us." Lillian exhaled, hugging Ava close. She recalled how Ethan's mother once made veiled comments about her middle-class roots. This felt eerily similar, yet Christopher's resolve comforted her. She knew adversity would come from all directions: wealth, ex-spouses, societal expectations. Only time would reveal if their fragile new love could withstand these pressures. And time, as always, was about to deliver more surprises than any of them could predict. Amid the complexities of Celia Freriedman's tacit disapproval, Lillian found a delicate balance with Christopher. She avoided direct confrontations with his mother, trusting that over time Celia might soften or at least tolerate the relationship. Meanwhile, Ethan's request to see Ava nagged at her. Each day she contemplated the risk of letting him re-enter their daughter's life. Could a father-child bond flourish so late, especially with her own heartbreak lingering? One late afternoon, after her shift at Bright Futures, Lillian received a cryptic message from Ethan. "I'm in town." "Let me see her. 1 hour at the cafe on Elm Street. No more excuses." She exhaled shakily, half tempted to refuse, but something in his tone suggested a desperation beyond typical paternal interest. She texted back, "Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. But I'm not promising anything." The next day, she brought Ava, cautious, though she loathed the idea of reintroducing her to a father who abandoned them. Ethan awaited in a corner booth. His eyes widened at the sight of the child, now a vibrant toddler with shining curls. Lillian noted how he slumped, tears forming. "She's grown so much," he whispered, voice thick. At first Ava clung to Lillian's leg, wary of this unfamiliar man. Gently, Lillian coaxed her onto Ethan's lap. The baby's eyes studied him. A few awkward minutes passed, then Ava giggled at some silly face Ethan pulled. A fleeting warmth blossomed, like a father connecting with his child. Lillian felt a tug of longing for what might have been, but as the hour wore on, Ethan shifted topics. "Listen, Lillian, I've been struggling. Lost my job. Finances are tough. I'm behind on rent." He paused, clearing his throat. "I was hoping, could you help me out? Maybe your new boyfriend could help." Her blood ran cold. She stared at him, lips parted. "Excuse me." He pressed, eyes darting with a desperate glint. I know Freriedman has money. If you two are serious, maybe he can spare—" Anger flared. "Ethan, you're basically asking me to beg Christopher Freriedman for money to bail you out." "That's insane." He grabbed her wrist, voice lowering to a hiss. "You owe me. Remember, we had plans until you decided to keep the baby, then bailed on our marriage." Heat rose in her cheeks. She yanked free, heart pounding with outrage. "You left me alone with Ava. Don't you dare twist the story." Ava began to whimper at the tension, tears rolling down her tiny cheeks. Ethan's face contorted. "Don't test me, Lillian. If Freriedman's in the picture, maybe I'll fight for custody to get my share. I know how the legal system works. Your new fiancé is a millionaire. Judges might see you as unfit, bouncing from a broken marriage to another man." She trembled, hugging Ava protectively. This was blackmail, plain and simple. "Stay away from us," she growled, voice shaking with fury. Scooping up Ava, she fled the cafe, tears burning in her eyes. Racing home, she felt panic and rage swirl. Ethan's desperation had morphed into a threat of custody entanglement. The fragile peace she found with Christopher was at risk. That evening she confided everything to Christopher, who clenched his jaw in anger. He promised to use all legal means to protect her and Ava. But Lillian still felt a shiver of dread. She had discovered a new love, only to have her ex dangle the threat of a custody battle that could overshadow all else. Little did she know that the next chapter would spin events faster than any of them anticipated, leading to a revelation that would leave Ethan thoroughly stunned. The tension wrought by Ethan's threat weighed heavily on Lillian and Christopher. To preempt any legal fiasco, Christopher arranged a meeting with a top family law attorney who confirmed that Ethan could file for partial custody, though he'd need solid grounds to argue Lillian was unfit. The attorney reassured them that Ethan's inconsistent presence and financial instability weakened his case, but the stress lingered. Christopher, seeing Lillian's anxiety, tried to lighten her load. He insisted on hiring a small legal team at Freriedman Associates' expense. Lillian resisted at first, not wanting to appear reliant on his wealth. But concern for Ava's well-being prevailed, and she reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, Christopher's mother, Celia, remained wary of Lillian's baggage, though she offered no overt opposition. Amid the swirling drama, Christopher summoned his courage. One breezy spring evening, he invited Lillian and Ava to a newly renovated Freriedman-funded playground in a picturesque park near the Hudson River. Toddler laughter filled the air as children raced across fresh turf. Ava squealed with excitement, exploring the slides and swings. While Ava played with a volunteer caretaker, Christopher led Lillian on a leisurely stroll along the water's edge. Tall lanterns cast gentle light as the sun dipped below the horizon. She inhaled the crisp air, letting the scenic beauty soothe her frayed nerves. Christopher's silence was uncharacteristic. He seemed deep in thought, hands fiddling in his pockets. At a scenic overlook he paused, turning to face her. "Lillian," he murmured, voice trembling, "the last few months have been more meaningful than any chapter of my life. You and Ava, you fill a void I didn't know existed. I love you both." He inhaled, then sank to one knee. Her heart leapt. She clasped a hand to her mouth, tears pricking her eyes. Christopher Freriedman, the philanthropic millionaire who once strolled into her office unannounced, was kneeling before her, holding a small velvet box. The shimmering diamond ring inside caught the lantern light. "I know things are complicated," he continued, voice shaking with emotion. "But I want to protect you, stand by you, and be a father to Ava, if you'll have me. Will you marry me, Lillian?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. She remembered the heartbreak with Ethan, the swirl of doubts about second chances. Yet Christopher's devotion had proven genuine, unwavering, even in the face of Ethan's intimidation. She glanced at the ring, then back at his earnest face. Her voice wobbled as she whispered, "Yes." He rose, sweeping her into his arms. Their lips met in a tender kiss, the swirl of the river breeze around them. Applause erupted from passers-by, who realized what had transpired. Lillian laughed through tears, turning to find Ava toddling up with the caretaker, as if sensing the significance of the moment. For Lillian, the proposal felt like a sudden leap off a precipice, both thrilling and terrifying. Yet Christopher's love gave her courage to believe in a future where her past no longer chained her. Meanwhile, far across town, Ethan would soon learn of this engagement in a manner that would upend his assumptions and push him to his breaking point. The final confrontation loomed on the horizon, promising revelations that no one saw coming. In the whirlwind weeks that followed, the Freriedman family moved swiftly to plan an intimate but tasteful wedding. Celia Freriedman maintained a polite facade, though she cast a shadow of skepticism about the union. Still, Christopher insisted on a ceremony that wasn't ostentatious. He only wanted close friends, immediate family, and a few special colleagues, including Lillian's co-workers from Bright Futures. When Lillian informed Ethan, more as a courtesy than a request for approval, he reacted with stunned silence. Then came an onslaught of text messages demanding explanations, accusing her of robbing him of a chance to reconcile. Lillian ignored them. She wouldn't let his manipulations mar her new joy. She had covered her legal bases and ensured her attorney was ready if Ethan attempted to sabotage the event. The wedding day dawned bright, sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows of a quaint chapel Christopher had chosen. Lillian stood in a simple yet elegant lace gown, hands trembling. Carmen fussed with her veil, beaming with pride. In the corner, Paula dabbed her eyes with a tissue, whispering how she'd never seen Lillian look so radiant. Baby Ava, dressed in a tiny white frock, clung to her mother's side, occasionally babbling happily. Lillian reflected on her tumultuous journey. Divorce, heartbreak, single parenthood. Now, a future brimming with possibilities stretched before her. She inhaled deeply, stepping out into the chapel's aisle to the soft strains of a violin. Christopher waited at the altar, wearing a tailored navy suit. His gaze locked on her with unmasked affection. As Lillian reached him, she realized tears shone in his eyes. The officiant's words blurred in a swirl of emotion. She felt a gentle brush of Christopher's thumb over her knuckles, steadying her heart. They exchanged vows, earnest promises woven with references to love, trust, and shared responsibility for Ava's well-being. "By the power vested in me," the officiant concluded, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Applause and quiet cheers erupted. Christopher sealed the union with a tender kiss. In that moment, Ethan slipped into the back of the chapel, uninvited. He froze at the sight of the wedded couple. Lillian's wide-eyed gaze caught him in the corner of her vision. For a charged moment, the newlyweds and the intruder locked eyes. Then Ethan stormed forward, ignoring the hush that fell over the pews. Lillian's breath hitched. Christopher placed himself between her and Ethan. Fury contorted Ethan's features. "You really did it," he spat, voice echoing in the stunned silence. "Marrying into money without giving me a chance to fix our family." She forced herself to stay calm. "We haven't been a family in a long time, Ethan. You made that choice, and now I've made mine." Before Ethan could spew further vitriol, Christopher quietly signaled the security detail. 2 ushers escorted Ethan outside, who barked threats that no one took seriously. Lillian trembled in relief, tears threatening to spill. Christopher enveloped her in a gentle embrace, guests exhaling in collective empathy. The ceremony might have ended in disarray, but the vow was sealed. Lillian, now Mrs. Freriedman, felt a wave of defiant strength surge through her. Ethan's last-ditch attempt had failed, and in doing so, he had only underscored how far she'd come. In the days after the wedding, Lillian and Christopher Freriedman embarked on a brief honeymoon, traveling to a secluded villa on the coast of Santorini, Greece, with Ava in tow. The azure waters and whitewashed buildings provided a peaceful respite. Each morning they savored breakfast on a sun-drenched terrace, while Ava toddled around chasing butterflies. Each evening they sipped local wine, discussing plans for the future. Expanding Bright Futures, building a stable home life, maybe even giving Ava siblings down the line. Ethan's disruptive appearance at the wedding had left them shaken, but Christopher's unwavering presence comforted Lillian. If any custody threat remained, they trusted the legal team to handle it. She felt a growing sense of security, grateful that her heartbreak had led her to a man who cherished her daughter as his own. Yet the biggest shock came upon their return to New York. Lillian found a thick envelope on the Freriedman penthouse doorstep. Inside was a paternity test result, addressed to Ethan. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she read the details. Probability of paternity, upper 0%. A scribbled note accompanied it. So you see, Ava was never mine. I hope you're proud. The signature was Ethan's. Heart pounding, Lillian stared at the test. According to this, Ethan was never biologically Ava's father. She felt numb, recollecting the timeline. She had never strayed in her marriage. Could the test be falsified? Or was Ethan raising a suspicion that her child was someone else's? Christopher, noticing her distress, gently took the papers from her trembling hands. "This is nonsense," he said firmly, scanning the result. "We both know your situation." But doubt gnawed at Lillian. Could the test be accurate? Had there been a mix-up at the clinic? She recalled how hurried and inattentive Ethan had been during her pregnancy. Or perhaps Ethan manipulated a fake test to sow chaos in her new marriage. Confusion tangled her thoughts. Over the following week, Christopher's legal team discovered Ethan had attempted to weaponize the test in a last-ditch custody claim, arguing that if he wasn't the father, he bore no financial responsibility nor any paternal rights, thus avoiding child support. But why claim zero paternity now after threatening a custody battle? The Freriedman attorneys swiftly dismissed it as a stunt, likely orchestrated to jolt Lillian into confrontation. Yet the emotional toll lingered. Christopher urged Lillian to get an independent DNA test done, if only to soothe her mind. She complied, and the results reaffirmed what she already knew deep down. Ethan was the father, the test refuting the spurious document. With a sense of finality, they recognized Ethan's move as the final act of a desperate man, creating confusion, then fleeing accountability. As the Freriedmans closed this chapter, word of the paternity scandal rippled through certain circles, reaching the ears of those who once whispered about Lillian's gold-digging ways. The truth that Ethan's document was fraudulent swiftly overshadowed the rumor. In the end, the shock that Ethan had intended for Lillian rebounded, painting him as the deceiver. Freed from his manipulations, Lillian embraced her new life wholeheartedly, armed with the knowledge that illusions, once shattered, yield space for genuine love to thrive. Sometimes the harshest heartbreaks become a gateway to unimagined hope. For Lillian Alvarez, divorce was an ending, but not the one she feared. Struggling to raise her baby alone, she discovered a beacon of kindness in Christopher Freriedman, a man whose generosity proved deeper than any check he could write. Together, they dismantled prejudices, navigated disapproving family expectations, and defied an ex-husband's desperate schemes. Through courage and trust, they forged a bond that championed Lillian's independence and cradled Ava with genuine fatherly devotion.
Imagine walking into the most lavish baby shower you've ever seen. Crystal chandeliers twinkling above towers of pastel macarons, designer goodie bags lining each seat, and a guest list that reads like a who's who of society's elite. But there's a dark secret beneath all that sparkle. The woman throwing this extravaganza is not the mother-to-be's best friend. She's the millionaire's mistress, and the mother-to-be. She's out of the picture, or so everyone thinks, until suddenly the doors swing open. In strides the real pregnant wife, clutching a marriage license that's about to unravel every lie in this glitzy room. Welcome to the scandal. Damien Blackwell wasn't born into wealth. He fought for it, with the kind of ruthless ambition that made him as feared as he was admired. Standing at 6'2", with carefully styled jet black hair, Damien possessed an intensity that could either captivate or intimidate, depending on which side of his generosity you landed on. By age 35, he had turned a small real estate venture into a sprawling empire. His name was whispered at exclusive charity balls, and he was recognized by moguls in the business world. Tabloid columns loved to label him a self-made millionaire with a heart of stone, yet society columns fawned over him as the unstoppable visionary on the rise. Despite the rumors swirling around him, people craved his presence. They invited him to their galas and philanthropic events, hoping a portion of his Midas touch might rub off. He'd appear in the company of A-list celebrities. Oprah Winfrey once interviewed him on a short segment, calling him the real deal, and he'd been spotted at a fundraiser sitting next to Bill Gates discussing global real estate strategies. His was a name that opened doors, sealed deals, and turned heads. But behind the veneer of polished success lay a tangled personal life. Damien was married, though not everyone in his social circle knew it. And he also had a mistress, a younger woman named Charmaine Delgado, who was cunning enough to stand by his side when it mattered, and discreet enough to remain in the shadows until she chose not to. It all began one deceptively quiet morning in their New York penthouse. Damien sipping his black coffee, looking over spreadsheets of property acquisitions. Charmaine flipping through a luxury magazine, her eyes lingering on an article about extravagant parties. A dazzling idea began to form in her mind that would soon lead to chaos. The quiet secret of Damien's life was his marriage to Elizabeth Redwood. At 28, Elizabeth exuded a calm, regal grace. She had grown up in a well-respected family in Boston. Her father, Jonathan Redwood, was a high-powered attorney, and her mother, Catherine Redwood, was a socialite renowned for her philanthropic work. Unlike Damien, Elizabeth had come from money, but she carried her privilege with humility. She taught underprivileged children art in a non-profit school. The marriage was low-key. Elizabeth had never been much for public fanfare, and Damien was all too willing to keep his personal life private to protect his empire from scrutiny. Over the years, they had cultivated an image of a silent, behind-the-scenes couple, rarely photographed together, rarely attending events hand in hand. Some thought they were just close business partners. Others assumed they had parted ways. Only a few intimates knew the truth. But Elizabeth was pregnant, something she had confided only in her close friend, Bella Thompson. They were planning to tell the world in their own time, but the pregnancy was a delicate matter. She had suffered 2 miscarriages in the past, and the heartbreak made her cautious. So Elizabeth kept a low profile, preferring to rest in the couple's Connecticut estate, rather than remain in the hustle and bustle of the city. Damien's visits to Connecticut had grown infrequent. The demands of his business took him overseas, so he said. Elizabeth trusted him mostly. She had chosen to focus on her health, certain that once the baby arrived, their marriage would find renewed purpose. What she didn't know was that Damien wasn't merely away on business. He was in Manhattan often with Charmaine Delgado on his arm. And Charmaine was hatching a plan that would rattle the foundations of everything Elizabeth believed about her marriage. Charmaine Delgado was a woman who knew how to make an entrance. With chestnut brown hair styled in sleek waves, impeccable designer outfits, and a fierce determination in her hazel eyes, she had carved out a place for herself in high society, albeit on the margins of respectability. People whispered that she was Damien's mistress, but they also noticed that her circle included the wives of major hedge fund managers, fashion influencers, and even small-time celebrities who adored her lavish dinner parties. She wasn't satisfied with being a well-kept secret. Her ultimate goal was to become the next Mrs. Blackwell. She loved the taste of power she enjoyed at Damien's side. The hush money, the compliments, the exclusive events he brought her to under the pretense of a business associate. She wanted more than stolen weekends in a Paris penthouse or summers at a Tuscan villa. She longed to replace Elizabeth Redwood, whom she considered dull and undeserving of the empire Damien was building. "Have you thought about throwing a party?" Charmaine cooed one morning as she lounged in Damien's penthouse, the city skyline glittering behind her. A big one, with all the right people. It could be a statement event. Maybe a fundraiser for your new philanthropic arm. Damien, engrossed in reading a financial report, merely raised an eyebrow. "You know those events are important, but we have an entire pep team that organizes them." "I don't need more noise around me," she persisted. "We need to show the world you're a man of the people, not just a cutthroat deal-maker. And you know I can handle logistics. Our friend Ariana Roswell from the Van Cleef & Arpels brand could sponsor part of it. It'll be huge, darling." He shrugged. "I'll consider it. Right now, I'm more focused on finalizing a land acquisition in Dubai." But that was just the first step of Charmaine's plan. She knew a single social event wouldn't be enough to stir up the scandal that might eventually push Elizabeth aside. She needed something bigger, something personal. And an opportunity was about to present itself in the most unexpected way. Miles away, Elizabeth Redwood was experiencing a new wave of morning sickness in the Connecticut estate. Damien's presence had dwindled to phone calls, text messages. They were cordial, affectionate, even, but detached. He assured her he was overworked and traveling internationally, promising that once deals were settled, he'd be back for a calm, quiet life together, especially when the baby arrived. Late one night, Elizabeth felt an unsettling pang in her chest that had nothing to do with pregnancy. It was a sense that something was off. Her friend Bella had dropped by earlier in the day, showing her social media photos from a party Charmaine Delgado had thrown. Charmaine's Instagram stories were suspiciously replete with hints of a wealthy backer. The location was suspiciously similar to a penthouse Elizabeth recognized as one of Damien's properties in Manhattan. Elizabeth tried to stifle the jealousy, telling herself that this was just a business associate hosting a private function. But the uneasy feeling refused to go away. After all, rumors about an affair had trickled through her social circle for some time, but she had always dismissed them as petty gossip. Now the evidence was piling up, pictures of Charmaine in lavish settings that Elizabeth knew only Damien could access. She placed a hand on her small baby bump. With the child's gentle fluttering in her womb, it felt like both a promise and a reminder. She and Damien were a family. They had a future. She told herself, "I have to trust him. Stress is the last thing I need right now." But doubt is a seed that once planted grows rapidly, especially in the lonely quiet of a large estate where your husband's presence is rare. One drizzly afternoon, Charmaine discovered the depth of Damien's secret. A single oversight on his part, he had left a series of open messages on his laptop while he stepped away to answer a phone call. Charmaine saw a digital note from Damien's assistant congratulating him on his wife's pregnancy. Charmaine's heart clenched. She knew Elizabeth existed, but she hadn't realized Elizabeth was pregnant. Jealous fury simmered beneath her carefully poised exterior. She paced the penthouse, chewing on her glossed lip. Eyes narrowed. "He's going to have a baby with that woman," she hissed under her breath. "What about me?" But soon a twisted idea formed in her cunning mind. She decided to use this pregnancy to her advantage. If she could insert herself into the baby's life, she might become indispensable. And so she hatched a plan so audacious it felt almost delirious, host a baby shower. For Elizabeth, yes, but secretly orchestrated by Charmaine herself and used as a platform to humiliate the pregnant wife or force a confrontation in public. She cornered Damien one evening with a proposition. "You never do anything big for Elizabeth," she said sweetly. "Why don't we celebrate her pregnancy? It'll be good, Pierre. Everyone in your social circle will know you're a family man. You're committed to your wife." He stiffened. "Elizabeth is very private. Besides, she's in Connecticut, and you know she's had complications before. She wouldn't want a big show." "Oh, hush," Charmaine insisted. "We'll make it a small, intimate affair. A high-end baby shower with carefully vetted guests. I'll handle everything discreetly. It'll be a great show of unity, especially for the tabloids. You could even do it at one of your properties to keep it private." Damien frowned, torn. "I don't think Elizabeth would appreciate it if a stranger organizes her baby shower." Charmaine placed a manicured hand on his shoulder. "Sweetheart, you need to show your support to your wife. Let me help. I'll ensure it's tasteful. No press, just close friends. I'll do all the heavy lifting. Besides, if you throw a shower for her, it'll erase all those silly rumors about me and you." Her eyes sparkled with the hidden motive, a chance to stake her claim in his life, to show Elizabeth and the world that she was more than just a rumor. Damien was reluctant, but eventually conceded, thinking it might indeed quell whispers of scandal if there appeared to be a friendly relationship between the two women. Charmaine couldn't help but smirk when he agreed. She quickly sent out invitations, making sure to invite only select members of high society and a few of Elizabeth's acquaintances. She didn't invite Elizabeth's family or closest friends. She wanted to keep the event's planning under her strict control. News of the upcoming baby shower spread quietly through upper-crust circles, almost as if it were a secret event for the select few. Elizabeth heard about it from Bella Thompson, who received an invitation by email. Elizabeth's confusion grew. A baby shower hosted by Charmaine Delgado. The name alone made her heart skip a beat. Instead of confronting Damien directly, Elizabeth decided to keep her composure. She confronted him calmly on a phone call. "Why is Charmaine Delgado organizing my baby shower?" Damien cleared his throat, his tone reassuring. "I wanted to do something special for you," Charmaine volunteered. "She's helping me out. I have so many business commitments, and you know she's got connections in event planning circles. She promised it would be small and refined." Elizabeth's gut twisted, but a part of her wanted to believe he was telling the truth, that Charmaine was merely a helpful business associate. She grudgingly agreed to attend, if only to avoid stress and hope for the best. After all, she had always wanted a moment to celebrate her pregnancy with friends. Maybe this was an olive branch. Maybe it would help her and Damien reconnect. But behind the scenes, Charmaine pulled every string to make this baby shower a spectacle. She selected an opulent venue, a palatial rooftop terrace belonging to one of Damien's real estate partners overlooking Central Park. She ordered pastel floral arrangements, towering centerpieces of orchids and roses imported from a prestigious florist in Paris. There would be a harpist, a string quartet, an array of gourmet amuse-bouches, and a cake so lavish it rivaled wedding tears. In the hush of her private thoughts, Charmaine planned her own unveiling. She would arrive looking stunning, the perfect hostess. She'd drop hints about her closeness with Damien to unnerve Elizabeth. And if all went according to plan, Elizabeth would be so overwhelmed she might even retreat, leaving Charmaine to bask in Damien's spotlight. As the date of the shower approached, Elizabeth felt an unshakable anxiety. She was 7 months pregnant, trying to remain calm, for the sake of the baby. Bella accompanied her to Manhattan, insisting she shouldn't go alone given her fragile emotional state. They arrived at the luxury hotel where Damien had booked them a suite. When Elizabeth entered the penthouse suite, she found a note from Damien, apologizing that he wouldn't be able to join her immediately. He had an urgent business dinner. She sank into the plush sofa, tears threatening. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, feeling the baby's gentle kicks. Bella poured her a glass of sparkling water. "Damien's being distant again," Bella said softly. "Do you trust him?" "Lizzie." Elizabeth blinked back tears. "I'm trying to. Everything is so confusing right now. He insists he loves me, wants this baby. Yet I see Charmaine in all his public appearances, and now she's hosting my baby shower." Bella offered a reassuring arm around her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you'll see the truth. Sometimes you need to look your fears in the eye. If something is off, I'll be right there to support you." That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She thought of her father's disapproving glance whenever the subject of Damien arose, recalled how her mother once gently hinted that Damien's lifestyle might not mesh well with a stable marriage. Elizabeth had defended him passionately, saying he was just driven, not unfaithful. Now her worst suspicions were creeping in. Could Charmaine Delgado be more than just a helpful business associate? A brilliant late-morning sun bathed the rooftop terrace in golden light the next day. Waitstaff wearing crisp white uniforms circulated silver trays of champagne flutes, fresh squeezed juices, and hors d'oeuvres. Guests trickled in, each more glamorous than the last. The decor was a pastel dreamscape. Delicate pink, mint, and lavender ribbons dangling from tall arches of greenery. A harpist plucked gentle tunes in the corner. Charmaine Delgado made her entrance in a sleek mauve cocktail dress with diamond accents. Heads turned. She was radiant, playing the role of the gracious hostess to perfection, greeting influential socialites and business figures with warm smiles. She seemed to relish every polite question about her connection to the Blackwells. Her eyes roved over the crowd, waiting for Elizabeth. After a tense elevator ride, Elizabeth arrived on the rooftop, escorted by Bella. The moment Elizabeth stepped onto the terrace, a hush fell, followed by murmurs of admiration. She wore a flowing cream maternity gown, her face glowing despite her anxious heart. She placed a protective hand over her baby bump. Charmaine approached with outstretched arms, her smile a calculated blend of warmth and condescension. "Elizabeth, darling, I'm so glad you made it. I've been dying to meet you in person." Elizabeth plastered a polite smile. "Thank you for hosting this. It's quite lovely. I wanted to honor the mother of Damien's child." Charmaine emphasized the name with a slight smirk. "He's told me so much about you. We must chat more later, once you've greeted all these lovely guests." Elizabeth nodded, her brow furrowing. As she glanced around, she noticed many faces. Some were her distant acquaintances, others complete strangers. Few of her real friends were here. It felt like Charmaine's friends, Charmaine's alliances. Elizabeth suddenly felt alien in what should have been her moment. Across the terrace, a small group of women huddled together, whispering and glancing at Elizabeth. She felt the sting of their judgment. Rumors about Charmaine's relationship with Damien had clearly reached these circles, and many were watching to see how Elizabeth would react. Damien himself was noticeably absent. An hour into the festivities, Elizabeth tried to make the best of it. She politely thanked each guest for coming, endured the cooing over baby gifts, and fielded vague compliments about how lucky she was to have such a supportive friend in Charmaine. Bella hovered protectively nearby, noticing the forced smiles and the subtle slights. "Lizzie, do you want to sit down?" Bella asked gently. "You look pale." Elizabeth felt overheated, but she forced a reassuring smile. "I'm fine. Just need a bit of water." Bella guided her to a seat. As a waiter brought over a glass of ice water, Charmaine reappeared, dragging along a tall woman named Harriet McAllister, a flamboyant gossip columnist for one of the city's scandal rags. Harriet was known for her sharp tongue and sensational headlines. She was exactly the kind of presence Elizabeth had wanted to avoid. Charmaine purred Elizabeth. "Darling Harriet here would love a quick chat about your plans once the baby arrives. She's a dear friend and does these wonderful pieces on society families." Elizabeth's stomach churned. She felt cornered. She recognized Harriet's byline stories about extramarital affairs, hidden marriages, and love children that sold out tabloids. With a forced graciousness, Elizabeth offered a handshake. "Pleasure to meet you." Harriet's lipsticked grin was disarming. "My readers would be thrilled to know about your journey. We rarely see you in public. Are you hoping to step into more philanthropic work?" After the baby, Elizabeth recalled her ongoing involvement with children's art education. "I've always been philanthropic, Harriet. My work with underprivileged children is where my heart lies." Harriet's gaze flickered to Charmaine, as if searching for a bigger story. "And how has Ms. Delgado here helped you prepare for motherhood?" Elizabeth swallowed her discomfort. "She's kindly hosting this shower. It's very thoughtful of her." Charmaine smirked, hooking an arm around Harriet's. "Damien trusts me implicitly with these sorts of things. We've collaborated on many projects." Elizabeth's heart hammered. She wanted to scream. Instead, she smiled politely, feeling a swirl of nausea. Harriet's eyes gleamed, sensing tension. "Well, I look forward to writing something wonderful," Harriet said, in a tone that implied she wanted to dig up drama. "Thank you both." As Harriet wandered away, Charmaine leaned in close to Elizabeth, lips curling in a mocking smile. "You must be so exhausted. Sure you can handle all this excitement?" "Dear," Elizabeth met her gaze firmly. "I'm fine. I hope Damien arrives soon. This is after all our baby shower." Charmaine's eyebrows arched a spark of triumph in her eyes. "Oh, he'll be here. Don't worry. He wouldn't miss his own event." From across the terrace, Bella flashed Elizabeth a worried look. Something was brewing, and they both sensed that Charmaine had not yet played her final card. Mid-afternoon, a wave of murmuring swept through the guests. Damien Blackwell entered, flanked by a couple of his business associates. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, exuding confidence, even as tension pinched the corners of his mouth. Elizabeth mustered a smile as she approached him. He leaned down to kiss her cheek, whispering, "You look beautiful." She forced a smile. "Thank you." Without missing a beat, Charmaine swooped in, greeting Damien with an intimate hug that lingered too long. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. Some guests averted their eyes uncomfortably. Others watched eagerly for signs of drama. Damien cleared his throat. "Charmaine, you've outdone yourself. This is spectacular." She beamed. "Only the best for your wife." Her lips curved at the word, as though it were a faint insult. "Now, dear guests," Charmaine said, raising her voice to gather attention. "May I have everyone's attention for a moment? We have a very special surprise planned for Elizabeth and Damien." Two waiters wheeled out a multi-tiered cake adorned with sugar roses and a shining gold bee for baby Blackwell. Gasps of admiration rose among the guests. Charmaine continued, "This baby represents a new chapter in the Blackwell legacy. We all know Damien is a man of ambition and power, but behind every great man is a great woman. Or so they say. Elizabeth, you're carrying his pride and joy, his future heir." Elizabeth swallowed, bracing for the spotlight. She felt a wave of relief that at least in this moment, Charmaine's speech sounded oddly supportive. But then Charmaine's gaze flicked to Harriet McAllister in the crowd. Sometimes Charmaine said, "The greatest test of love is how we handle adversity." And I think we all need to raise a toast to that. Because it's not just about the baby. It's about forging a future that might change the face of the Blackwell Empire forever. A hush fell as glasses were lifted. Elizabeth felt something ominous in Charmaine's words. Damien's expression was inscrutable, yet a slight twitch in his jaw betrayed tension. "Cheers!" Charmaine declared, her eyes flashing with triumphant challenge. Glasses clinked, but no one seemed entirely at ease. It was as though the moment was waiting for something to drop like the hush before a devastating storm. The cake was sliced. The harpist played softly, and guests milled about in the golden glow of early evening. Bella pulled Elizabeth aside gently, pressing a crisp document into her hand. "Lizzie, this came by courier for you at the hotel front desk. It's from your father." Puzzled, Elizabeth unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned over a statement from her father's attorney referencing property transactions tied to Damien and Charmaine Delgado, purchased under a shell corporation. Elizabeth's heart stuttered. So it was true he was financially supporting Charmaine in more ways than a simple fling. There was mention of a property in Paris, high-end jewelry acquisitions, and hush money payments disguised as consulting fees. Tears pricked Elizabeth's eyes. Her father had, in his own cautious way, tried to protect her. This document spelled out a betrayal more devastating than any rumor. She glanced at Bella, who squeezed her hand in support. Elizabeth took a steadying breath. "I need to confront him. Now." Leaving Bella behind, Elizabeth navigated through the throng of guests. She found Damien alone near the bar. His phone buzzed on the counter beside him. He looked anxious, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. She handed him the document, voice quivering. "Damien, what is this?" He scanned the pages, color draining from his face. "Elizabeth, I can explain." Her voice rose, trembling with anger and heartbreak. "Explain how you're buying properties for this woman while I'm at home pregnant with your child. How many lies have I believed? Were you ever traveling on business or just off with her?" He tried to grab her hand, but she recoiled. "It's complicated. I was trying to protect you, the baby. My deals are huge. They require alliances." Charmaine was Elizabeth's eyes glistened. "You used me. I was carrying your child, hoping we'd be a real family, and you've been building a future with her." A hush spread as guests nearby picked up on the argument. Charmaine across the terrace watched like a hawk, lips curving into a small smile. Damien struggled for composure, but the tension in the air crackled. Elizabeth turned away, tears streaming. She was about to flee when Charmaine made her final move. Charmaine approached, feigning concern. "Elizabeth, darling, is something wrong?" Elizabeth glared at her. "Don't darling me. You know exactly what you've done." Damien looked on helplessly. Charmaine battered her lashes, turning to the onlooking crowd. "My friends, please, let's give Damien and Elizabeth some space. Then, in a lower voice, she added, "We're all on the same side, right? This is Damien's baby, after all." Elizabeth's voice cracked. "You have no business in my marriage." Charmaine smirked. "I hate to be the bearer of difficult news, but you might want to brace yourself." She placed a hand on her own stomach. "Because I'm pregnant, too." Gasps rippled through the guests like an electric shock. Elizabeth's face went ghostly pale. The words seemed to echo, bouncing off the marble columns of the terrace. Damien's eyes widened in horror. What Elizabeth breathed, barely able to stand. Bella rushed to her side, supporting her. Charmaine's smirk deepened. "Surprised Damien is going to be the father of my child. That's the real reason I planned this shower. A test run, if you will, for the bigger celebration." A mixture of shock and revulsion spread across the guests. Harriet McAllister had her phone out, already taking notes for a sensational article. Elizabeth's trembling hand rested on her own belly. The heartbreak was overwhelming. She thought of the many nights she prayed for this pregnancy to be safe, while her husband created a new life with Charmaine. The betrayal was too immense to put into words. Damien looked trapped, like a man whose secrets had finally caught up to him. "Charmaine," he hissed. "You said you wouldn't." She flipped her hair triumphantly. "I changed my mind. You can't sweep me under the rug anymore, Damien, especially not when I'm carrying your child. Everyone here deserves to know the truth." Elizabeth's legs weakened, and Bella guided her to a chair. The crescendo of scandalous whispers rose around them. For a moment, Elizabeth's world spun. Quietly, deliberately, Elizabeth stood again. She locked eyes with Charmaine, then glared at Damien. Her anger surged, adrenaline fueling her. She reached into her small clutch and pulled out a document, her official marriage license to Damien, along with a copy of their wedding certificate, sealed and signed by the state of Massachusetts. She raised her voice with as much composure as she could muster. "You think you can come into my baby shower, my life, and pretend you have some rightful claim to my husband? Let me make something clear to everyone. Here I am, Mrs. Elizabeth Redwood Blackwell, and that is not changing unless I say so." She held the documents up for the onlookers to see. "This is our marriage license, and we are legally married. This scandal you're trying to create will not erase that fact." Charmaine's composure wavered for a second, but she quickly regained her smugness. "Legally married or not, I'm carrying his child. That's a bond you can't break." Elizabeth's tears were gone, replaced by anger and the fierce protectiveness of a mother. "Get out of my face!" Damien tried to step between them. "Both of you calm down. This is not the place for..." Elizabeth turned on him with fury in her eyes. "Not the place, Damien. You let your mistress plan my baby shower. You humiliated me in front of all these people. You might have impregnated her too, and you have the audacity to say this is not the place." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The tension in the air was suffocating. Harriet, phone in hand, was practically salivating at the unfolding drama. The hush gave way to frantic whispers. Some guests discreetly slipped away, wanting no part in the public meltdown. Others stayed transfixed as though watching a train wreck they couldn't turn away from. Elizabeth staggered, pressing a hand to her belly. Bella, alarmed, quickly came forward. "We need to get you out of here, Lizzie." Charmaine sneered. "Oh, the poor dear. Maybe next time she won't be so self-righteous when she's married to a man who can't stay faithful." Elizabeth's voice trembled with outrage. "If I wasn't pregnant, I'd slap you right now." Bella, furious, snapped. "Let's go, Lizzie. This isn't worth risking your health." They made their exit, the stunned crowd parting like the Red Sea to let the pregnant wife pass. Charmaine's lips formed a triumphant smirk, as though she had won something. But in truth, she had just ignited a scandal that would haunt all three of them. Damien hesitated a moment, torn between chasing Elizabeth and dealing with Charmaine. Ultimately, he rushed after his wife, leaving Charmaine in the middle of the shell-shocked guests. Harriet McAllister wasted no time snapping a covert photo of Charmaine's smug face. Later that evening, social media was ablaze with rumors of the fiasco. Several guests posted cryptic updates. Never seen a baby shower end with such fireworks. Harriet McAllister teased a big expose fueling interest in every corner of Manhattan high society. Back in the penthouse hotel suite, Elizabeth was inconsolable. She had locked herself in the bedroom while Bella tried to calm her down, urging her to rest, to think of the baby. When Damien arrived, Bella blocked his entrance. "Lizzie doesn't want to see you right now," Damien spoke in a low, urgent voice. "I need to explain." "Please, Bella." Bella's eyes flashed with protective fury. "Explain how you lied to her for months, how you not only cheated on her but let your mistress host her baby shower." "Just go, Damien. You've done enough." The door cracked open. Elizabeth's voice, weak from crying, emerged. "Let him in, Bella. I need to hear what he has to say." Reluctantly, Bella stepped aside. Damien entered and found Elizabeth sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes read a box of tissues at her side. "Lizzie," he began softly. "I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen." "Charmaine. Well, she was more than a fling, but never meant to replace you." She looked up, anger and heartbreak shining in her eyes. "Is she really pregnant?" He hesitated. "She says she is, but I haven't seen any medical proof. She blindsided me too. I swear I never intended for that to happen." Elizabeth let out a bitter laugh. "So it's a possibility. I was home carrying our child while you were off, impregnating someone else." He sank to his knees beside her. "There's no excuse. The truth is I got caught up. I was lonely traveling, dealing with pressure. We drifted apart, and Charmaine was available. I'm sorry." Tears streaked her face. "Lonely, I was lonely too. I lost 2 babies before this one. Remember, I needed you, Damien." His voice cracked. "I know, Lizzie. I failed you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you let me." She stared at him, an ocean of hurt welling in her eyes. "Right now, I need space. I need to protect my baby. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Bella re-entered, guiding Elizabeth into the next room. "She needs rest, Damien. You should go." Damien stood, realizing the gravity of what he might lose. "Lizzie, I love you. I love our child. I promise whatever it takes." His voice trailed off. Elizabeth turned away, tears dripping from her chin. "Just leave." While Elizabeth tried to recover from the emotional blow, Charmaine reveled in the aftermath. She sat in her own luxury apartment, scanning gossip websites. They'd already begun posting sensational headlines. "Millionaire, real estate, mogul faces baby shower scandal, 2 women. 1 baby or 2. She sipped champagne. Smiling at the tabloid photos, one showed Elizabeth, tear-streaked, holding the marriage license aloft. Another captured Charmaine's triumphant smirk. But her phone rang with an unexpected call. Gerald Anderson, one of Damien's close business associates, an older man, who had brokered many of Damien's biggest deals. Charmaine answered playfully, "Gerald, darling." "Calling to congratulate me?" Gerald's tone was ice. "You've made a spectacle of yourself and Damien. This fiasco is dangerous for the company. The board is worried about negative press. Damien's deals in Asia are already wavering. Investors don't like scandal." Charmaine rolled her eyes. "Tell them to relax. All publicity is good publicity. People will forget in a week." Gerald's voice hardened. "Not this time. Your stunts might cost billions. Damien's name is on the line, and so is yours if you keep pushing this. I'd advise you to disappear quietly or face legal consequences." Charmaine bristled. "Legal consequences for carrying his child? Don't be absurd. I have my own resources. Damien won't let anything happen to me or the baby." Gerald's laugh was humorless. "You're naive if you think he'll jeopardize his empire for you. My recommendation: lay low, handle this discreetly, and pray that Elizabeth doesn't drag you through court. That would be a bloodbath you can't win." The line went dead. Charmaine's smirk wavered. She realized with a chill that no matter how cunning she was, she might be playing a game against forces far larger and more ruthless. Still, she refused to be intimidated. Damien might be the father of her unborn child if she was indeed pregnant, and she intended to leverage that to her greatest advantage. Days turned into a week, and the scandal didn't die down, as Charmaine had predicted. If anything, it spread further. Media outlets that usually stayed away from private affairs devoured the story. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Damien's reputation took a hit, and so did the share price of some of his companies. In Connecticut, Elizabeth tried to find solace. She spent hours in her art studio painting her emotions, swirls of dark blues and fiery oranges depicting her turmoil. Bella stayed with her, ensuring she ate and rested. Late one afternoon, her father, Jonathan Redwood, arrived. He was a tall, stern man who rarely showed emotion. When Elizabeth saw him step into her living room, she burst into tears. She was Daddy's little girl, and her heartbreak was palpable. He held her gently. "I'm here now, Lizzie. We'll fix this." Through sobs, she recounted everything. The baby shower. Charmaine's bombshell, the public humiliation. Jonathan listened quietly, anger flashing in his eyes. "It's time to think about your future, not just your marriage," he said in a measured tone. "Damien's not the only one who can protect you financially. You have your trust fund, and your mother and I will support you. If you want a divorce, we'll ensure you and the baby are taken care of." Elizabeth's lips trembled. "I love him, Dad, but I can't be with someone who betrays me. Not if he won't change. I have to put my baby first." He squeezed her shoulder. "Your mother and I stand behind you. We'll consult with top lawyers. Whether you want a settlement or full custody, we'll figure this out." Elizabeth took a shaking breath. "I just need time to think. I don't want a drawn-out court battle. It's too much stress for the baby. But I won't let Charmaine ruin my life." Her father nodded. "Take all the time you need. We'll keep your options open." In that moment, Elizabeth felt a seed of strength. She might have lost faith in her marriage, but she wasn't helpless. She had her own resources and a powerful family behind her. She vowed not to let her child suffer because of Damien's mistakes. Meanwhile, Damien scrambled to contain the fallout. He held emergency meetings with his PR team and business partners. They devised a strategy to minimize damage, releasing a statement that personal matters are being handled privately and urging the media to respect the family's privacy. But the tabloids thrived on scandal, and every new rumor about Charmaine's alleged pregnancy fueled more headlines. Damien left countless voicemails for Elizabeth. She rarely answered, speaking only when absolutely necessary, mostly about her doctor's appointments. Desperate, he drove to Connecticut unannounced, ignoring his schedule of business calls. He found Elizabeth in the backyard garden, tending to a patch of hydrangeas. She looked serene, though heartbreak lingered in her eyes. Bella, seeing Damien approach, quietly slipped inside. Elizabeth rose, wiping her hands. Damien. He swallowed hard. Lizzie, I know you need space, but I had to see you. She shrugged. I'm guessing your board is demanding that you fix this mess. He sighed. They are. But that's not why I'm here. This is about us, our baby. I'm sorry I let Charmaine get so close. I was an idiot letting her host that shower. And if she's really pregnant, I'll deal with it. Elizabeth inhaled slowly, the weight of her sorrow evident. I'm not sure there's an us to fix anymore, Damien. You humiliated me. You lied. You might have fathered another child. How do we come back from that? He stepped closer, voice cracking. By remembering what we had, what we still have. We've always been there for each other, especially after our miscarriages. Don't let Charmaine's scheming tear us apart. Elizabeth bit her lip. Memories of their wedding day fluttered in her mind, the quiet vows, the sense of hope. Could she forgive him? Finally she spoke. I can't just snap my fingers and pretend everything's okay. I need to see you genuinely change. I won't raise this baby in a broken home. But I also won't let you walk in and out as you please. It's all or nothing. He nodded, tears gleaming in his eyes. I understand. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I'll cut Charmaine out of my life, if that's what you want. Elizabeth's gaze turned steely. What if she's pregnant with your child? You can't just walk away from that responsibility. Damien looked pained. I'll provide for that child, but that doesn't mean I have to be with her. I want my family with you. Elizabeth's throat tightened. Show me you mean it. Because if this is another lie, Damien, I promise you I will walk away for good. A week later, a private meeting was arranged. Elizabeth insisted on seeing Charmaine's proof of pregnancy before making any decisions. Charmaine agreed to a meeting, likely eager to flaunt her hold over Damien. They chose a neutral location, Gerald Anderson's stately townhouse in the Upper East Side, away from prying paparazzi cameras. Elizabeth brought Bella and her father. Damien arrived with 2 of his lawyers. Charmaine came with a small entourage, including a self-proclaimed celebrity attorney known for high-profile cases. Tension was thick. Jonathan Redwood set the tone. We're here to determine if Ms. Delgado is truly carrying Damien's child. If so, we'll discuss necessary arrangements and responsibilities. If not, we'll consider legal action for defamation and emotional distress. Charmaine, wearing a fitted designer dress that showed only a slight curvature at her stomach, crossed her legs confidently. How dare you threaten me? I have every right to be here to claim what's mine. One of Damien's lawyers interjected. We have a doctor on standby to conduct the appropriate blood tests and ultrasound. You agreed to this, Ms. Delgado. Charmaine hesitated. I want my own doctor. Someone I trust. Jonathan Redwood shook his head. We'll have an impartial physician, one neither side can manipulate. If you refuse, we'll assume you're lying. Charmaine's eyes flicked to Damien. "You'd do this to me." "Doubt my word," he sighed. "You've given me every reason to doubt you, Charmaine." "I need proof." She glowered, but eventually relented with a shrug of feigned indifference. "Fine. Test me. But when it comes back positive, you'll regret questioning me." The group moved to a private office where a discreet physician waited. Under watchful eyes, Charmaine underwent a brief ultrasound and blood draw. The tension was palpable as they waited. Damien stood beside Elizabeth, glancing anxiously between her and Charmaine. Bella and Jonathan Redwood watched from the corner, arms folded in silent judgment. When the doctor completed the ultrasound, the screen showed a small embryo clearly visible, measuring about 9 weeks. Charmaine wasn't lying about being pregnant. The hush in the room deepened. A tear slipped down Elizabeth's cheek. Damien closed his eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. Charmaine sent them both a triumphant smile. "Told you." The group reconvened in the townhouse parlor. The doctor confirmed Ms. Delgado is indeed pregnant, approximately 9 weeks along. Further blood tests will confirm paternity, though Ms. Delgado states Mr. Blackwell is the father. Elizabeth felt her world tilt again. Damien swallowed, looking at Elizabeth with guilt. Charmaine smirked at them both, an air of victory radiating from her. Confronted with the undeniable reality of Charmaine's pregnancy, Elizabeth felt a crushing weight descend upon her. She excused herself from the tense meeting, stepping out into the townhouse garden. The gentle sound of a fountain trickled over the hush of thick hedges. She tried to steady her breathing, fighting tears. Damien found her there, carefully approaching. "Lizzie." His voice trembled with heartbreak and regret. "I'm so sorry." She turned eyes blazing with pain. "You've saddled me with a lifetime of sharing you with that woman and a child that's not mine. Do you realize how devastating this is?" He reached for her hand, voice thick with remorse. "All I can do is own my mistake. I don't want to lose you. Let me prove to you that I can be the husband and father you deserve." Elizabeth's tears flowed freely. The child in her womb kicked as though sensing her distress. "I don't want my baby to grow up in a broken home, but I refuse to be in a marriage with 3 people. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'll handle everything with Charmaine. We'll set up a trust for her child, ensure financial security. But my home is with you and our baby." She pulled away. "Words aren't enough anymore, Damien. Show me through your actions. If you think I'm going to live under the same roof with you while you juggle some arrangement with Charmaine, you're wrong. I'm staying here in Connecticut until I decide what's best for me and the baby." He nodded, tears glistening. "I understand." With that, they returned inside. Charmaine looked at them smugly. Jonathan Redwood gave her a cold stare. "We'll be in touch regarding legal arrangements. Until then, do not contact my daughter directly. Any communication goes through me or her attorneys." Charmaine flipped her hair. "Damien, you know how to reach me if you need anything, especially with the child's appointments." Elizabeth's heart clenched. Without another word, she left, followed by Bella and her father. Damien lingered behind a silent desperation in his eyes. The lines were drawn. The story exploded in the media once Harriet McAllister got wind of Charmaine's confirmed pregnancy. The tabloids had a field day with headlines like "Millionaire's double-duty wife" and "Mistress both pregnant." Late-night hosts made snide jokes. Online comments ranged from sympathy for Elizabeth to outright mockery of Damien's lack of fidelity. Elizabeth retreated to Connecticut, turning off her phone for days at a time, focusing on her health and painting to channel her emotional turmoil. Bella stayed with her, creating a buffer against the swirling press. Jonathan Redwood consulted with divorce attorneys, property lawyers, and PR strategists to weigh every possible outcome for Elizabeth. Damien did his part to distance himself from Charmaine, if only to placate Elizabeth and salvage his marriage. He cut off personal contact channeling communication through his lawyers. He tried to focus on his business acquisitions, but investors grew skittish. The scandal had tarnished his brand. He faced a crisis in Asia when a major partner threatened to pull out unless he resolved his domestic issues. Charmaine, for her part, attended a few public events, flaunting a small baby bump lapping up the media attention. She granted Harriet McAllister an exclusive interview, painting herself as the wronged woman who had accidentally fallen in love with a powerful man. She teased that she still believed Damien would choose her if Elizabeth walked away. Despite the bravado, she was beginning to fear the Redwood family's legal might. As Elizabeth neared her 8th month of pregnancy, her doctor worried about her elevated stress levels. She decided that for her baby's well-being, she needed clarity, even if it was painful. She summoned Damien to Connecticut for a final decision. They sat in the sunroom, where the afternoon light filtered through tall windows. Elizabeth wore a simple linen dress, her large belly a testament to how close she was to giving birth. Damien, looking weary and older than his years, sat across from her. Bella remained nearby, silently supportive. Elizabeth spoke first, her voice calm but resolute. "I've had time to think. My father is willing to help me file for divorce the moment I decide it's over. But I don't want to make a choice I'll regret just because I'm angry." Damien listened intently, clasping his hands. She continued, "I love you. I want our child to have both parents. But I won't be humiliated or lied to. If I stay, I need to know Charmaine is out of our life in every possible way, except for the child you'll need to support. That's unavoidable, but I will not have her at family events in our homes or near me." Damien's eyes brimmed with tears. "I swear, Lizzie, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to raise our child together, and I'll protect you from her. I made a mistake, a catastrophic one, but I refuse to lose you because of it." She inhaled shakily. "Charmaine won't go quietly. You've seen how she craves attention. She's going to hold this child over your head, and she might stir up more drama. If it becomes too toxic, I'm gone." He nodded. "I understand. I'll sign any post-nuptial agreement you want. We can set up a legal framework for Charmaine's baby. Child support visitation. Everything will go through attorneys. No personal involvement." Elizabeth's voice trembled. "I'm giving you one last chance, Damien. Don't betray me again, because I won't survive another heartbreak." He moved to kneel in front of her, gently placing his hand on her belly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me a chance to be a better man for our baby." She placed her hand over his tears, spilling. "Don't waste it." A month later, Elizabeth's contractions began late at night. Bella drove her to the hospital, and Damien rushed from the city the moment he got the call, in the sterile glare of the maternity ward. Elizabeth labored through hours of pain, her screams echoing in the corridor. Finally, a healthy baby girl was delivered, wailing with robust life. Damien broke down in tears when he first held his daughter, whispering thanks and apologies to Elizabeth. Exhausted, she smiled weakly, letting him kiss her forehead. There was a sense of fragile unity in that moment. Over the next few days, Elizabeth stayed in the hospital regaining strength. Damien remained by her side, doting on the baby. Bella and Jonathan Redwood visited, offering cautious support. A swirl of media inquiry buzzed outside, but the hospital maintained strict privacy protocols. The Redwood name carried weight, ensuring Elizabeth could recover in peace. As Elizabeth held her newborn daughter, warmth filled her chest. Love, hope, and determination to protect this precious child. She watched Damien cradle the tiny girl who had his dark hair and her soft features. For a moment it felt like they were a real family, untainted by scandal. But reality loomed. Charmaine was nearing the midpoint of her pregnancy, and she would soon deliver a child who shared Damien's DNA. That future weighed heavily on Elizabeth's heart, even as she tried to savor the bliss of new motherhood. Elizabeth decided to move back to the Connecticut estate, permanently away from the city's gossip. Damien agreed, hoping to rebuild their relationship in the tranquility of the countryside. He spent more days commuting between the city and the estate, determined to show Elizabeth he was committed. Legally, Charmaine's child was recognized. Through carefully negotiated documents, she received a comfortable allowance, medical expenses, and a guarantee of ongoing child support once the baby was born. She tried to push for more face-to-face involvement, but Elizabeth refused. Damien kept his distance, only communicating through lawyers and the occasional phone call regarding medical updates. Charmaine's bitterness grew as she watched from the sidelines. She had expected a grand romance or a highly visible co-parenting arrangement that kept her tethered to Damien's life. Instead, she was relegated to the outskirts, a footnote in his empire. Though wealthy by association, she was still alone, pregnant with a man who'd chosen his wife over her. It wasn't the victory she'd imagined. For Elizabeth, life became a delicate balance, caring for her newborn daughter, grappling with the trauma of betrayal, and trying to trust Damien again. Each day that he returned from the city, without any sign of infidelity, was a small victory. She wondered if she could ever fully forgive him, but she loved him enough to try. Months passed, and the scandal gradually faded from public view, replaced by fresher celebrity gossip. Elizabeth and Damien shared quieter days at the Connecticut estate, cherishing the baby girl who had brought them a renewed sense of purpose. Charmaine eventually gave birth to a healthy boy, then drifted into a more private life when headlines ceased to favor her story. Still, the memory of that explosive baby shower lingered like a cautionary tale. In their elegant living room late at night, Elizabeth sometimes caught Damien gazing at her with a mixture of regret and gratitude. Their marriage was far from perfect, and trust was a fragile plant that needed constant nurturing. But they had chosen to move forward together. And that's the story of the millionaire who let his mistress host the baby shower, only for his pregnant wife to show up with their marriage license. Love, betrayal, and a chance at redemption if they can hold on. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster ride of secret affairs, surprise pregnancies, and unexpected confrontations. If you were as captivated by this tale of love, betrayal, and redemption as we were, please hit the like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.